Hey folks, I'm Bill Langer. You're watching Traditional Adventures TV, and this is part 2 of my Whitetail Secrets series, what I've learned over 50 years of paying attention to whitetails. I hope you enjoy, and at the very least, I hope this inspires you to go to the woods and chase whitetails. Thanks for coming along. Well, I'm on some management property, state regulated, and supposedly they're overrun with deer, but haven't seen a deer track yet, but I've seen 3 bears. So this stand here is on public land. That stands about 20 yards from this well-worn trail. There's a big swamp out in front of me, about 300 yards away, and there's a subdivision several hundred yards away to the east. But deer normally come out of the swamp, out of the northwest, and they use this trail right here. It also splits and goes up the hill below the stand up there. What's nice about this is it's got some pretty thick cover in here, and the deer feel really comfortable traveling through this area. Low lying brook there, swamp out in front of me, and then these thick young pines here that deer love to come and bed in. There's a variety of oak trees in here, which I haven't had a chance to check them. I just got in here. So this particular stand that I have on public is only about 15 feet off the ground, just because this tree works best and there's plenty of cover here. If you see in the camera here, I'm in thick pines, and the deer come in here to feed. They also come in here to bed. There's actually a bed right here. It's got deer hair in it, so I know it's not a bear bed, although all I've seen is bears so far. But plenty of cover for them in here, and it's just scattered with a variety of oaks. This has been a real good spot over the years. Seen plenty of deer in here, taken plenty of deer. This is a really good public spot. You can hear the traffic in the background. I'm only probably 400 yards maybe from paved road, main road, but the deer are in here. Plenty of cover, plenty of feed, plenty of water. There's houses in the subdivision off to my east, big swamp to the north, open hardwoods off to the west. Over here to the east, the sun comes up over here in the east. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning right now. There is a ingrown field in there, but this is just a public honey hole. I've done real well here. I'll share some pictures with you. It's just a spot. It's quite a long walk though from where you can park, so that's the only disadvantage, but it's a good spot. So here's the view from this stand, surrounded by thicker pines and oak trees, and I've just spent some time glassing here, and these oaks have nuts on them, so they're starting to drop. There's a few on the ground. There's the trail I was standing on earlier. That's a game trail, believe it or not. It's almost like looks like a human walking path. But that's about a 20-yard shot to my left, to the west. But what the deer will do, they'll come out of this swamp out in front of me here, which you can't see in the camera, but there's a swamp out there in front of me, and they bed in and around it. And they'll get up to come out and feed, and they'll start down this trail, but quite often they split. And I get deer right out here in front of me here, and about 50% of the time they come this way. And this puts them right at about 10 yards, which that's a great shot. This is a bow hunting only area. Got acorns falling with every gust of the wind. So this should prove good, and haven't been in here since last year, but there's a bed right at the bottom of the tree here filled with deer hair, so they're in here and they're utilizing this. It's always been a good spot. Looking forward to opening day. The tree stand is in some nice cover. This is the deer's view. Here's a trail coming up through here. They come right through here. Some old droppings right there. Come right to here, and they usually always pause before they head out this way. I've got them right there at 10 or 12 yards. it's a great bow hunting setup. It really is. It's surrounded by all these little pines and oak trees. The deer just feel real comfortable in here, and they don't know the boogeyman's 15 feet above them. So hopefully this pans out this year. This spot's done well for me in the past, and hopefully it continues this year. Time will tell. I'm often asked by non-hunters why I hunt or why I'm so into hunting, and it's really a two-part answer. My feeling is of why I hunt is that it's never been bred out of my bloodline. We were all hunters-gatherers at some point in our history. And for me, it's never been bred out of my bloodline. It's something I was born to do. I feel compelled to go to the woods. I love providing organic venison for my family. Why I hunt and why I'm so into hunting is because of my dad. My dad got me involved at a very, very young age. As soon as I could walk, he had me in the woods. Same thing with the construction business. He tells me about changing my diapers on the hood of a bulldozer. I had no chance to be anything but a blue-collar heavy equipment operator, and I built a good life for my family out of it. But again, the instinct to hunt was never bred out of my bloodline, and my father was the inspiration to get me in the woods and keep me in the woods. The people that influenced me to film my hunts, you know, Fred Bear and the Wenzel brothers probably more than anything. Just watching their videos, I knew I wanted to capture my hunts for future generations in my family. I wish I had that. I wish I could have watched my father when he was younger on video, or my grandfather. So the legacy of passing the tradition on to my family, some of my grandkids or great-grandkids that I may never meet will be able to watch their great-grandfather or grandfather hunt in the woods. And that's something I think is important, so that the future generations know what the generations before them did. So this spot right here I love for hunting good buck deer. We got the terrain features here is it's your typical edge, and I've got 3 different edges that come together. As you can see here, I'm in open hemlocks. The deer typically bed up behind me, up on the hill in the laurel. They'll come down through here in the evening through these open hemlocks. Now these open hemlocks come right into this thick laurel edge. I've got a big white oak right here. There's a set of twin oaks to my right that when they're producing, the deer are on it like candy, so are the bear and turkeys. But as they come down through here, and I missed an opportunity at a really nice buck 2 years ago on opening day, just before dark. He came right down through here. You can see real well, and he stood right in here, and I could not get an arrow in him. He was at about 6 yards. The tree stands right here. I'll get up in there and I'll show you that. The view from up there. But you got open hemlocks, hemlock forest. They come down through from bedding. They come right along this edge of this thick laurel and green patch, which this runs for hundreds of yards. And then over here to my right, we've got some open hardwoods that hold oaks. So we've got open hardwoods with these 2 white oaks. When they're carrying nuts, the deer go crazy in here. You've got the open hemlocks behind them. And then you've got the thick laurel over here. And the tree stand is right on this hub where these 3 different terrain features come together. 3 different types of cover and woods. The stand's right there. And that makes this a really neat set. So here's the view from the stand. I got open hemlocks behind me, open hardwoods to my right, and then thick mountain laurel that runs for hundreds of yards. Bedding is typically up there on the hill, up on top of the hill there in thick mountain laurel, but they'll come through here too, out of this area. It's good all around, all year stand. Northwest wind blows like this. East wind would come this way. South wind would come like this, which is no good. and a north wind would come out of here, and that's where typically the deer come from. So again, they're coming to me with the wind quartering over their right hind quarter as they're heading down the mountain here. Coming down, they'll stage right along this thick stuff here and head out. There's fields that way and white oaks all down through here, and a lot of red oaks as well. And it's just a spot where you pick them up in the evening heading to eat, and I've caught them in the morning coming back from all the white and red oaks. There's great big mature colonial aged red and white oaks down there, and they'll come through back in the morning as the thermals are starting to rise, which is catching them in the rear end as they come through. And typically we got a west wind or northwest wind, so it's a little dangerous, but I'm pretty high here and it typically blows over the top of them. But I found in hunting quality deer, bucks specifically, lots of times you got to hunt a bad wind that's you're right on the edge, the knife's edge of it being in favor of them, so that they're comfortable traveling. And it just takes experience and a lot of seat time. So that's this stand. I think I got one or two more I'll show you, and hopefully you're learning a few things. Okay, this next setup that I'm going to show you, I'll show you the approach. I'm on a rock ledge right here. There's a little dip in between me and the next rock ledge over there. And there's all kinds of big red oaks here. This is open hardwoods here. You can see this trail coming down over the bank. Got pretty much open hardwoods here, all through here, but it's right outside of thick cover. Some fresh acorns on the ground here. So here's a view from right outside the stand. And now here's the funny thing about this tree stand is I've never killed a deer out of it. I shot and missed a really nice Connecticut deer out of this tree stand about 8 years ago. Beautiful buck deer. Shot right over his back. We're just surrounded here by these great big red oaks. It's open right here. Well, it's open as it typically gets here in Connecticut. But what I'm sitting up against, again, another view of the stand right there. Right out in front of the stand, 15 yards, is thick mountain laurel. And this goes on for hundreds of yards and goes up over top of a mountain, and there's oak trees scattered throughout there. This stand had great cover. The deer I shot at was paralleling through this open, more open hardwood area, and he was coming right along the edge of the thick laurel here to the left. Coming right across this rock ledge there. He was right out in there, about a 15-yard shot. Shot right over his back. That was a heartbreaker. It was a really good buck. Had the recurve in hand and I just blew it. Unfortunately, I did not get that one on film. But what I will tell you, although I've not killed the deer out of this stand, I shot and missed one telling me I was in the right spot. I've killed several really nice bucks, especially for Connecticut, within 100 yards of this stand. Still hunting, mainly through this thick stuff. In fact, I'll show you a picture, hopefully a couple pictures of probably the biggest three-pointer you've ever seen. He was aged at 9.5 years old. I had sent his jaw out. He basically had no teeth left. He just had a few of his front teeth left. And he was in this thick laurel here, dogging a doe. And I was just poking my way through it, and we walked face to face, and I shot him at about 15 yards. It was a really good day for deer hunting. In fact, I was on my phone and had to set the phone down. My brother-in-law was telling me about a mutual friend of ours, Mike, who had shot a big 10-pointer in Goshen, Connecticut. And I'm talking to him softly, walking through, and I said, "Big buck," and I dropped the phone and shot the deer and picked the phone back up and showed him the deer I had just shot while I was on the phone with him. And that was just a rut hunt, walked face to face with him. There was a hot doe in there. He probably thought I was another buck coming in, and he came right at me. But biggest 3-point I've ever seen. Again, 9.5 years old, and he was a big deer. He dressed out in the 190s. and several other deer I shot when I was a younger man here. I shot an 8-pointer where the tips almost touch, you know, from side to side, and a decent 8-pointer with recurve bow again when I was a young man and didn't have much gray hair, all within 100 to 150 yards of this stand. Several other guys that have hunted this property have shot some really nice bucks up in here. Big 10-pointer came out of here, and a couple 9-pointer, a really nice 8-pointer, less than 200 yards away. The deer like to bed in this thick stuff behind me. They come out into these open hardwoods, feed on these acorns, and then the mountain drops off here and drops down. There's an old apple orchard and several fields down below, and it's a long walk in here. Broke out in quite a sweat. Long ways from the truck, but getting in here early, you can catch deer first, you know, the last hour of light, half hour of light, because you're so close to their bedding area. Again, northwest wind, there's the stand up there in the tree. Wind's blowing like this. The deer typically come out of here like the west, southwest, and by the time they get to you and get within your scent stream, it's too late. So this next stand, I'm going to film the approach. I've got quite a few hunting videos from this area. You can see there's a trail right here. I don't know if the lighting's very good for you, but you can see this trail going right along here. They come right through this saddle here, again going up it and down it. And I'll show you just how the hill climbs here. The hill climbs up over there. Can't see that too good through the brush, but they travel up and down here. And this drops off fairly rapidly. But this is just a killer spot. You can see look at this game trail right here, going right down the hill. The camera really isn't doing it justice. It's pretty steep terrain. But the animals, the deer especially, have got a trail worn out right here, heading down towards my tree stand. And I've got some video of taking a decent Connecticut buck out of this stand. Wow, that's a good looking arrow. Connecticut 7-point, very happy with him. He certainly will eat good. And it's just your typical funnel from the top of the mountain, heading down into the fields and the orchards down below, which are several hundred yards away. There's farms and houses down below there. Tree stand there. So that's about a 15, 16 yard shot. I face uphill like this, that steep hill we just walked down. And the deer typically will come down out of the hill from both directions, this way and this way. They hit this funnel coming down the mountain, again, heading towards the orchard and the fields that are down below me. And they usually pass within 20 yards of either side of the tree. Again, northwest wind here, or west wind is what typically is the prevailing wind. But because it's so steep here, you get those thermals rising in the morning and you get the thermals dropping in the evening. So we'll get a west wind coming this way. I just walked down the hill this way. My stand's over here to my left. The deer just blew at me. The deer just blew at me and took off. So we'll get a west wind or a northwest wind coming out of here, which is blowing all my wind typically east. And to the east, this drops off like you need to be a billy goat to be able to traverse it. I had a buck that I shot, ran off and over that hill, and I'll show you that video. But in the evening, the thermals are dropping down. The deer will come off the top of the mountain to go down and feed with the thermals at their back. And we got a crosswind going this way. So my wind's going east and they're heading north or northwest, and I can split them either side. And even if they get to the east of me, I'm so high up in the air there, and the ground just drops off that way sharply, and about as far as the camera can see, it dives off. I mean, like cliffs. And deer almost never catch you as far as smelling you in here. And I've shot a lot of deer in here, found some tremendous sheds in what I call the chute in the mountain. This is my chute stand. And I had a deer blow at me and bedded right up in here, and I run into deer up here all the time. But you sneak in here, and I get in early, and sometimes I'll jump them, and they'll run off, and the same deer will be back a couple of hours later. This place has a tremendous amount of grapes. There's grapevines everywhere, and these grapes will fall throughout the year, and they'll dry up and they'll turn into raisins. And when there's a good crop of them, they'll be feeding on them all the way into December when there's snow on the ground. You'll come in here and they'll have the hill all kicked off, getting down to the dried out grapes or raisins. And they eat quite a bit of that. Plus all these rocks. I showed you some of the rocks coming down off the top of that hill there. They're covered in like a lichen, and the deer absolutely love it. During the winter when there's deep snow, they'll go along those rock faces and they'll eat that. It's like a green and black lichen. I should know what it's called, but I don't. But the deer love it. But I'll just show you the trail that continues down the mountain here. It's just worn right into the side of the hill. A trail like this is a no-brainer. Got to keep it simple when you're out hunting, and positive attitude is so important. You know, making up excuses that it's too cold, too hot, you only got an hour to hunt or 2 hours to hunt. Get out there and hunt. I've killed a lot of deer in the last half hour of light, especially during the rut. I can think of one instance. I needed to get the emissions done on my car. And a friend of mine owns a car dealership, and I went and got emissions. And it was like 3:45, and legal shooting light that day was like 4:25. And I'm like, I saw him, and I said, I'm going hunting. He said, what? He said, it's going to be dark soon. I said, I know, but in 15 minutes I can be in my stand, and I'll still have 25 minutes to hunt. Sure enough, I shot a beautiful 8-pointer. So you can't shoot them if you're sitting at home watching TV or sitting on the couch. Especially during the rut. That's a real lucky time of the year to kill a deer. We all like it because the big boys get on their feet and they move more during daylight, but it's a real crapshoot. I prefer early season to consistently taking mature whitetails. Here in Connecticut, if you can find a food source while they're in their bachelor groups, or not yet been disturbed, like I just disturbed that deer a little while ago. They tend to move. We start September 15th, and they tend to move really well in the first 2 weeks. And you know, a guy who can find the feed source and where they're feeding, that's about the easiest time of the year to kill a big buck. And your knowledge and your experience and your hard work is paying off a heck of a lot more in the early season when you figure out where they're going and feeding than it is during the rut, where, I mean, you can shoot them in a Walmart parking lot. They're just crazy that time of year. And again, hunting the early season and spending as many days and hours as you can in the woods, that's going to build woodsmanship. So there's a ton of books, podcasts, and videos from blue-collar guys like me giving people all sorts of advice or experiences. And you've got to take it all with a grain of salt and learn what works for you. What a lot of this stuff reminds me of, if you're going fishing and you have a fishing rod and a reel and the proper line for the body of water that you're going to fish in, what are the two things you need if you go to the bait store? You need a hook and a worm. We'll catch 90% of the fish that swim in any waters on earth. Yet what do you see when you walk into a bait shop? You see all sorts of shiny things and doodads and gizmos, and I always get the feeling that they're there to catch fishermen, not fish. And same thing with a lot of philosophies. You know, if a respected person comes up with an idea, a lot of people consider it to be gospel. And there are exceptions to every rule. And take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. You know, I'm just a blue-collar machine operator, but I have a passion for the woods, and I've spent tons of time in it, and I'm sharing my feelings and my perspectives. But don't hold everything as, you know, the almighty truth. Go out and discover for yourself. That's important. So this next stand here is just a classic rut setup. The bucks come and they check the does in these fields. First hour of the morning, last hour of the evening. I've got a stand up here. It's pretty grown in. The nice thing about this spot is, here's the tree stand here. Haven't been up there to clear the vines yet. There's just some grapevines growing over it, but I'm hidden in here. The does bed up behind the stand here. There's 250, 300 yards, and then there's a subdivision and road up there. The does bed in there. The bucks come down along this field edge, follow this field edge, head back off into this thick stuff, checking for does, and they're catching the wind. Again, a northwest wind. The wind is typically always coming in November. Tree stands right here, hit me in the back of the head and blowing out. And this drops off so fast, and I'm so high up in the air that the wind blows right over the deer. And the deer just come in here and feed. And the bucks know that the does are in here. I've taken a couple nice deer. You can't even see where the stand is there. You can see my lifeline. Stands right in there, in amongst those vines. Bucks will cross from the mountain where I was just showing you those other stands. They'll come through the edge of the orchard here, come right along the edge, checking the wind, checking the ground for scent. They'll head off into this corner or tuck in underneath my stand. And it's just a perfect spot to kill a November buck in Connecticut. I've got some video and some pictures of some nice deer I've taken out of there. All right, here's what we got going. I've been filming myself, and now I got my partners with me, John and Du Bois. They're gonna come out and try to help me find it. This is not one you pass up in Connecticut. Yes, got another rut stand over there, but the farmer's helper's over there cutting. I don't want to get in his way, but I'll probably show you a little bit of video from that and a deer I killed there. I have no idea what just happened. I had that buck come right underneath me. I stopped him. I put a perfect arrow on him, and I must have bumped the record button. Classic rutting travel route. He's coming from some upper fields, coming down through this valley here. I'm up on a little bit of a rise, and then he would have headed down, probably across the brook, out through that valley and up the mountain, and he ran into me on the way. So I'm going to give you a shot of the tree stand and kind of the way the ground works here. So over here is a like a low valley saddle between two ridges, and as far as you can see, there's houses on either side. Again, I'm hunting about 30 acres here, and I've got a hill behind me and a valley down below here, and here's my tree stand. My tree stand's right here on the edge of a field, a small field. And then from here, I parked across over there. This field rolls down off to a brook and then heads back up the hill on the other side, which we have 100 acres or so to hunt on the other side. But this deer came right down through here, right through this little hole, came right out, stood right over here. I shot him right here. There's blood all over. And there's the arrow. 7-pointer. We're all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat. And you know, your personal choices and lifestyle choices are going to dictate some of your success. Some guys out there that have changed their entire life and lifestyle to be able to pursue the animals. And you know, Gene and Barry Wenzel, they were out in Montana for years to have all sorts of species to hunt. And then between blue tongue and the deer die off, they moved to Iowa. Great place to be if you want to shoot big whitetails. And they're dedicated, and you know, their entire life revolved around pursuing quality whitetails. Jason Samkowiak, same thing. He was living up north, and he moved down to Georgia, I believe it's Georgia, and changed his entire lifestyle and what he wanted to do with life. And now he has all the time in the world to hunt whenever he wants. And the 1% of the 1%. It's not for everybody. It's okay just to be a deer hunter. But if you want to consistently take good bucks, you got to work. You got to put boots on the ground. You got to get sweaty and dirty. So over the years, I've been asked a ton of questions about hunting, equipment, anything to do with bow hunting. And so I'll just touch on a few things here. I get asked all the time, what's the best broadhead? Well, the best broadhead is the sharp one with fixed blades. I prefer the 3 blades, like the Snuffer or the Woodsman or the VPAs. Real easy to sharpen. I believe in just the file finish. It works every time, and I've been fortunate to take game all over the world, and just through experience I've been able to test them and learn what works. When it comes to arrows, you've got the romance of wood arrows, the nostalgia of aluminum arrows, and the durability of carbon arrows. The arrows that work best are the ones that shoot accurately and are spined properly for the bow. That's pretty simple. Again, this is more of a beginner thing. Make sure your setup is set up correctly and the arrows that you're using are spined properly for the bow. Pretty simple. When it comes to bows, shoot a bow that feels comfortable to you, that you can shoot accurately. A $150 bow will shoot just as well as a $2,000 bow. You got to find something that works for you, that's within your price range, and that's comfortable for you to shoot. Try not to ever be overbowed. A 40 to 50 pound bow will take all the game in North America, no problem whatsoever. I get asked questions on camo all the time. I've worn camo from time to time. Sometimes I wear it, sometimes I don't wear it. The most important thing is that when game is close, that you don't move. Lots of times I work late and I only have an hour to run into the woods, and I'll be hunting in my work clothes. I'll have boots on that have diesel or gas or grease on them, and just a work shirt that I have, and I may just throw a camo shell over it. The most important thing is movement. Pick your shots when the game is looking in the other direction, has their head down feeding. That's the most important thing. When it comes to shot placement, accuracy kills. An accurate arrow with a sharp broadhead will kill 100% of the time. It's never the arrow, it's always the Indian. As far as topo maps are concerned, I've never really used them. I make a living reading prints. I'm in the excavation business and I do residential and commercial sites. And I get calls from people all the time asking me, can I send you a print and can you give me a price? And my answer is always no, without walking the site. You can look at all the topo maps you want and I can look at all the prints I want, but until I walk the site with boots on the ground, you have no idea what's actually going on. You can get an idea, but until you're in the woods, on the ground, looking at the sign, that's the most important thing to understanding what the topography is and how the terrain features lay out in the woods. When it comes to the moon phase, I really don't pay that much attention to it. I prefer a dark moon over a full moon. However, I've killed several bucks over the years on full moons. One in particular, 8-pointer that I shot, it was 75 degrees and he came out at 4:30 in the afternoon with a full moon. The deer are in the woods, and that's where you need to be. One of the secrets to being a consistently successful ethical predator is not taking shortcuts. Learn the woods, learn the game's habits. If you take shortcuts, there's going to be a lot that you don't learn. And guys that take shortcuts when they're hunting in different areas and aren't able to use the tactics that they've used maybe in their home state, they don't do as well because they haven't learned the basics. So some of these things that I call secrets are just so very basic. You need to spend as much time in the woods as you can so that you gain the confidence that you know what's going on in the area and the game that you're hunting. I've been very lucky to spend so much time in the woods that I have the confidence that when I head to the woods, every time I expect to see deer, and I don't suffer from burnout because of that. I can hunt 7 days a week for months on end, and because of the time that I've spent in the woods, I always have confidence when I head to the woods. And that's one of the most important things, is to spend the time and gain the knowledge so that every time you're heading to the woods, you have the confidence that you're going to be putting yourself within bow and arrow range of a deer. I've been fortunate to mentor a lot of people, not only in hunting but in business. When I was in my 20s, I was a certified bow hunting instructor in the state of Connecticut, and I really enjoyed giving those classes. We typically had 25 to 30 people in a class, and I did dozens of them. And I still hear from them today. I'll see them around town or in the airport, and they'll thank me for the time that I donated to them and inspired them to get into the woods. And that's really important. You always got to give back. It'll come back to you tenfold. Be sincere and share your knowledge with others. Same thing in business. I know a lot of young landscapers and construction guys, and they're always asking me questions about business and life. And they're saying, well, we're waiting to get married, or we're waiting to buy a house, when they're talking about their family life. And I tell them, if you wait, you'll never get there. Same thing with hunting. If you want to go to Alaska and climb the mountains and hunt sheep or elk out in the west, or go over to Africa, don't wait till you're ready, because you'll never be ready. I wish I had done a lot more things when I was younger. Now that I'm in my mid-50s, I'm getting tired, and the knees hurt and the back hurt a lot more climbing the mountains. And I wish I had spent more time younger doing some of the ventures that I wanted to. I hope to be able to hunt brown bear and Alaskan moose in the future. My kids are grown now. I only have one child in college. But getting away from work still and family, and having the health is always in the back of your mind. And the point is don't wait until you're ready, especially if you want to do big adventure hunts. Do it when you're young. Don't wait till you're an old man with ailments. So there's a ton of books, podcasts, and videos from blue-collar guys like me, giving people all sorts of advice or experiences. And you've got to take it all with a grain of salt and learn what works for you. What a lot of this stuff reminds me of, if you're going fishing and you have a fishing rod and a reel and the proper line for the body of water that you're going to fish in, what are the two things you need if you go to the bait store? You need a hook and a worm. We'll catch 90% of the fish that swim in any waters on earth. Yet what do you see when you walk into a bait shop? You see all sorts of shiny things and doodads and gizmos, and I always get the feeling that they're there to catch fishermen, not fish. And same thing with a lot of philosophies. If a respected person comes up with an idea, a lot of people consider it to be gospel. And there are exceptions to every rule. And take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I'm just a blue-collar machine operator, but I have a passion for the woods, and I've spent tons of time in it, and I'm sharing my feelings and my perspectives. But don't hold everything as, the almighty truth. Go out and discover for yourself. That's important. Here's another simple secret. When you're out scouting in the woods and you see a deer or jump a deer, ask yourself why. I hear all sorts of stories. Hey, I was out, I walked, I saw 3 flags. Well, I'll give you an example. The other day I was out walking public land, and I ran into a doe and 2 little ones. I got right up on them within like 30 or 40 yards. And they were there for a reason. And I thought to myself, they bounded away, not very far. I've got some video of it on my phone, and maybe I'll share it here. But after the deer left, I started thinking, okay, why were these deer here? So I started doing circles out from where I had seen them. And I got out to about 60 yards, and there was a small white oak tree dropping acorns on the ground. And you could see droppings and that the deer were feeding there. So don't just overlook when you see a deer, and when you're out scouting. I bumped a deer, I saw a flag. Go right to where the deer was standing. See if you can figure out whether it was bedding or not. See if it was feeding. Maybe it was on a trail just traveling. Think. One of the most important things to being consistent and successful is always be thinking and think outside the box of all the norms that you've learned and been taught about. Again, there's an exception to every rule. So when it comes to weather, hunting around different weather conditions, this is just a basic video for guys first starting out. We can talk about wind, we can talk about snowstorms. What I have found with heavy rain is that if it's raining, if you get up to go out hunting and it's just a driving rain first thing in the morning, if you have the time and within your schedule, I mean, I'm talking a heavy driving rain, wait it out. Maybe drive through your hunting area, sit in the truck, have a coffee, whatever, and wait till that driving rain stops. And I don't care whether it's 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Head right to your tree stand. I have found more often than not, after a very heavy rain, as soon as it stops, the deer will be up and moving on their feet, no matter what time of day it is. I've been very successful using that tactic. Okay, when it comes to wind, we'll keep it real simple. Don't get overwhelmed with everything you read about and everything you hear about on podcasts or watching guys like me on videos. You don't have to understand thermals 100%. You don't have to necessarily understand the leeward or windward side of a mountain. As a basic rule, keep the wind in your favor. In other words, if you think the deer are coming from a certain wind direction, set up so your wind's not blowing where the deer are. Now, as you get more advanced and you learn more about how thermals and wind currents work, you'll develop your skills involving that. But what I hear a lot from young hunters, they're constantly asking me questions about wind, and they feel intimidated because they don't understand how thermals and wind directions work. And I've always told them, try to keep the wind in your favor. Now, having said that, as an advanced tactic, quite often when I sit up on a mature buck, I'm right on that knife edge of having the wind in his favor, because he needs to feel comfortable moving through the woods. And I found that having the wind just outside of where he's going to smell me has led to me having success on shooting decent bucks. If you have heavy wind and the wind dies down, sometimes the deer will get up and move. I have noticed that during heavy wind, especially if there's a driving rain in November, for whatever reason, the bucks like to be on their feet. I've heard so many times, oh, it's going to be windy and rainy today, I'm not going to hunt. I love it when there's a pretty stiff breeze and it's raining, especially during November. The deer seem to move good. One of the secrets that I keep bringing up is what you do off the field is sometimes as important or more important than what you do in the field. You need to set your life up so that the woodsmanship that you gain by spending as much time as you can in the field, that you have the time to apply that woodsmanship. Choices in life. Family always comes first, but in picking a spouse, pick a spouse that supports what you love to do. And I've been very fortunate. My wife came from a hunting and fishing family. Her father was a sort of a gentleman. He fly fished and was a wing shooter. But when I met my wife, first thing she wanted to do was join me in the woods, and I knew I'd found a winner. She's been really good to me. She supported me. She spent a lot of time traveling and hunting with me and filming some of my hunts, and she's very supportive of what I do, and that allows me to be a family man and also be an outdoorsman, and I'm very thankful for that. And all my kids have been very understanding, and they've all joined me on hunts over the years, and those are some of my most important memories in the field. Well, that's going to do it for part 2. Hope you've learned something. I've kept it pretty simple. Biggest thing is you have to find where these deer are living, the bucks that you're after in your area. The other most important thing that I feel is paramount is setting your life up so you can spend the maximum amount of time applying the woodsmanship skills that you've learned. It's simple math. The more days you spend in the woods scouting and hunting, the more your odds are going to go up. That's the big secret.